Okay, this is Yusef. Um, and the other video I made is part one, and the reason why I put part one on there is because as it was uploading, I just meant it to be a solitary video, last of it. I didn't want to keep talking about it. But it was a while ago, and my memory is terrible, as people know. That I was just listening because I'm doing just some paperwork and crap like that just to get it done, because I'm not gonna be really working until the 27th, which is a day from now. But I'm thinking, shoot, I gotta work on the 27th, and I just promised everybody to get back to on the 27th. Oh, I will. I get through. I will actually try to respond to every single one on the 27th. I'm very sorry. It's been delayed for most of the reasons are out of my hands, but well, actually all of it was out of my hands. I kind of want to be on there, but I did kind of just take a break because I was feeling just sick, and just, you know, and then other majority of its access. I just want to make that as a preface for these few videos. I know I said that at the beginning of all of them, just in case somebody sees one of them. I'm not trying to ignore people, but I can go around it and actually see comments, but I wouldn't be able to respond, so I don't even want to look at the ones right now until I can actually respond, and that won't be until I get back to the shop, which will be on the 27th. But I was just up doing paper work and stuff like that, and by the time I got to it publishing, I typed in part one because of stuff that I heard on defamation. I think defamation, it gives both sides. It is not a propaganda one way or the other. It shows different people talking, which you could watch a large portion of it or parts of it and think, oh, it's one way or the other. But the thing that shocked me, where I knew I had to make another one, and then there was more things, was you hear the Israelis. I mean, the people who disproved the human soap stories. It was the Israelis, and rightfully so. And it's I think most people who know about most people who had grandparents in the Holocaust want a truthful rendition of the Holocaust. Don't want it as propaganda, and are probably disgusted by the fact that it could be used as propaganda. And I think even the ones who had parents die or who were in the Holocaust, who have even been in the camps or the brutal treatments of World War II, especially Jewish people, I don't think they take an active look at it. They don't go back and critique it. They're not trying to, they already experienced it. They don't need to go and relive it each time, which is perfectly understandable. But you hear, I mean, from the beginning of the movie, you have these emotionally charged students where, I mean, it's really beaten into them. These are enemies. We're going to send Secret Service agents with you. You know, these basically special forces. You know, people of the military with you, so that you'll have no contact with the population at all, because they're anti-Semites. So you're cutting them off from community. I've just been done talking about cults, cutting you off from the public, emotionally charging everything, keeping you in a closed environment, making sure you're always with somebody else, and it just strikes me. That's why I made this. It's like, whoa, it's kind of close to hell. But an Israeli. I mean, these people know they know the bars of soap, aren't you? Saying that the Germans used the cremated bodies of Jews, the ashes, as fertilizer? Yes, people were killed. Yes, people were killed because they were Jews. I mean, the Eastern Front, tons of them were shot. But I have to say again, along with Poles, not just Polish Jews, no, Polish Catholics, because the Poles weren't the Teutonic Aryans, as the Germans called them. They were the Slavs, you know, or at least the Slavic Poles, because in modern-day Poland, part of it was German ethnicity, the other part was Slavic. That's how the Germans remembered the First World War, is the Teutonic against the Slav, you know, Serbia and Russia as the enemies, and the Austro-Hungarian as the good guys. That's why Germany annexed the Sudetenland. But that it's this distinctly Jewish thing, and it's funny, going to Auschwitz, yeah, you wouldn't want them talking to any of the locals or having any guides that weren't Jewish. Because you see them, they're not using guides. These are people walking through and saying, "Oh, these are Israelis," because Auschwitz is very Catholic. And it's like, oh man, I feel horrible just for these kids. Of like, wow, you're built into this. And I'd forgotten they actually went over this. He asked them, "Does this desensitize you?" And the kids say, "Yeah. What do I mean, I see on TV these Arabs lose their home or they're shot. They haven't gone through what we've gone through." Wait, what your grandparents gone through? Because you live a life of luxury. And well, no, our suffering. I mean, it's extremely personalized in you, and it's going to happen to you, and it can't happen to you, and it's unique. And it was as if in the death camp, when the Germans had killed people or starved them to death, that if you were a Gypsy or Polish Catholic, or you were a homosexual or a Jehovah's Witness, or a someone who's mentally handicapped, your suffering was less because you weren't a Jew. But this is not to speak against to say this is a movie about you know, the Jews and the Jews are, because there's many Jewish people in the movie that stand up and say, "Wait a minute, what are you talking about?" And say, "No, it's not. You can't. It's bad. It's a bad thing to say that the suffering is unique." And people say, "Well, I'm not a Holocaust denier. I'm an anti-Semite." Say, what can I say to you to prove that? I mean, many of these people are Jewish that they interview. They say, "Well, I have a friend who's Jewish, or I'm Jewish," and they say, when you say that, it's almost people automatically go, "Oh, well, then you are," you know. Which I don't. I mean, again, I have a problem with saying anti-Semitism and then only applying it to Jewish people. Is just odd to me. It's probably because I'm part Arab. I don't want to have any racial identity. It kind of. It's because I grew up around other Arabs. I'm American. I can't say, you know. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, my racial. That'd be kind of similar to what's kind of going on here. But there are Jewish people in this documentary that say, and it's funny. You have, you know, atheists like Norman Finkelstein, but what's funny, noted in the video, is that the more religious Jews say fighting anti-Semitism doesn't have anything to do with being a Jew. It's not in the Torah. It's, you know, it's not a mitzvah. So I thought that was kind of strange to hear, but actually good. And the man who made Defamation actually asks a rabbi, "Do you think, since they don't have a religion, since they don't adhere by the Torah," because Abe Foxman and his wife said, "Oh, well, we don't really practice I mean, they don't follow the laws of Judaism at all. So their identity is the Holocaust," which is something that I've said was kind of a bad thing, that you're uniting around a Holocaust. It's not. That's not good. I mean, that militarizes people, but your identity is that everybody's out to get you. I want to ask a question at the end of this too, so I would say remind me, but you can't. But the more religious Jews seem not to be so obsessed with the idea of the Holocaust, and and it's not just the Holocaust. I understand the importance of recognizing the past, but saying that the Holocaust or the Shoah is only the Jewish deaths, even though they happen side by side with non-Jew deaths. And it's this whole idea of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism, and you hear people in the video saying, well, anti-Zionism is the new anti-Semitism. They're the same thing. And the guy says, well, I hope they're not, because then there's some hope you can be against Israel without being an anti-Semite. They say, no, you're basically, you're crazy, you're delusional, you're like a battered wife who says, oh, well, my husband still loves me, doesn't really, so there are some people who are very, I mean, Abe Foxman even says, well, because the guy asks him, well, don't you think you're creating more harm for the United States and Israel by, propagating this, by acting like the Jews have so much power and trying to push your way into because it shows him kind of being pushy with the Ukraine and, constantly beating his drum. And he says, well, who the hell are they to speak for us? Who do they decide? Who voted them in? Well, Abe Foxman, ask yourself that. But luckily, they do interview people that say, whoa, we don't want anything to do with these people. These people are actually not good representatives of us, and actually are kind of the bullies and making victims out of our children, and setting them with the mindset to make them cold to other people's suffering. It's not making them more compassionate. So I have a question for any Jewish people watching this, and I don't have the answer to this. But any Jewish people that thinks there's this astounding amount of anti-Semitism and hatred, and why? I mean, and I don't and I don't mean that to deny that there's any, or that there was any, or anything like that, but there is cause and effect in anything. Why do people hate the Jews? What are some reasons? Is it because they're rich and powerful? Because you hear Abe Foxman talk out of both. He says, yes, we are, and then he says, well, how dare you say that? That's anti-Semitic to say. And then he says, we have a lot of money, but you shouldn't say that. How dare you say Jews have a lot of money, because that'll lead to anti-Semitism. That's how Holocaust started. And it seems that any type of stereotype or generalization that leads to the Holocaust. When I've had, actually the only people who are comfortable saying this were people who weren't white. They said stereotypes exist for a reason. And I say, yeah, I mean, to some degree, yeah. I mean, not all Italians are like the Jersey Shore, but that stereotype exists because there are a few loud jackasses that act like that, Why are the Jews hated? And it's funny, because all the people in my life who I knew were Jewish actually had more money than my family. Now, I don't fault them. I don't say that's there's characteristic of all Jewish people. Certainly not. Certainly there's ones in the Soviet Union that are like that, but all the ones that I had come in contact with, and if I didn't research it, I said, oh, okay. I mean, would that be an anti-Semitic statement? Is saying that, well, the suffering of the non-Jews in the death camps was equal to the suffering of the Jews. Is that anti-Semitic? Because there's some people who say, yeah, that's anti-Semitic, because the Jewish suffering in World War II was unique, and that's what the Holocaust was. The Holocaust wasn't any other deaths, it was specifically Jewish deaths. Which I would say the Holocaust was the whole world going up in one war. I mean, a burnt offering of the whole burnt. I mean, the whole world felt the horror of World War II. Just that question at the end. No one said that it does show. I think good movie. Peace to you. May God save Serbia and Syria. I guess saying that would grant me as an anti-Semite by some. A serious Arab. It was a while ago, and my memory is terrible, as people know. That I was just listening because I'm doing just some paperwork and crap like that just to get it done, because I'm not gonna be really working until the 27th, which is a day from now. But I'm thinking, shoot, I gotta work on the 27th, and I just promised everybody to get around it and actually see comments, but I wouldn't be able to respond, so I don't even want to look at the ones right now until I can actually respond. That won't be until I get back to the shop, which will be on the 27th. But I was just up doing paper work and stuff like that, and by the time I got to it publishing, I typed in part 1 because of stuff. Okay, this is Yusef, and the other video I made is part 1, and the reason why I put part 1 on there is because as it was uploading, I just meant it to be a solitary video. Last of it, I didn't want to keep talking about it, but it was there. But I did kind of just take a break because I was feeling just sick, and just, you know, and then other majority of its access. I just want to make that as a preface for these few videos. These I know I said at the beginning of all of them, just in case somebody sees one of them. I'm not trying to ignore people, but I can go back to on the 27th. Oh, I will. I get through. I will actually try to respond to every single one on the 27th. I'm very sorry. It's been delayed for most of the reasons are out of my hands, but well, actually all of it was out of my hands. I kind of want to be on